So, lovely ladies, our topic for today is again one of connection, one that I speak of often. And it's not going to be a talk by me as such, as really I want to bring up a series of questions that may help you to take some time to contemplate certain things that you do with your dog every day and see what comes up for you and see what, if there is anything you want to change, and if there is something you want to change, how would you like to change that? Because I think in everyday situations we are given plenty of time to connect with our dogs, and sometimes we do, but very often we forget about the connection. And I want you to think of living in any relationship with any person within a household. When it becomes so familiar, when our relationship becomes so familiar with that person or that dog or that animal in our lives, we often tend to overlook the very basic needs that we all have. And that is to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, and to be loved unconditionally. And this is regardless of whether it's a human or an animal. And as I say, when we've lived in a relationship with another person or animal for a long time, we often overlook these very, very important things. We may pass each other in the hallway or in the kitchen or whatever without making any eye contact, without any presence, without any connection. We just are living with them. And I think this often happens when we're living with our dogs. And if you've had this experience, please, hands up. I certainly have. Certainly have to remind myself on certain occasions. And Charlie is one of my really good teachers about this, because he will come and initiate that connection with me when I realize that I've hardly made a real deep connection with him on that day. He will really come up, and Layla too, actually, and come up and nudge me and nudge me and nudge me with their nose. And it's often a cue for me to stand up, get up from the computer, or stop what I'm doing and just give them that undivided attention for a few minutes and just build up that real connection, because they don't have that opportunity during the day. We get busy with our days doing all sorts of things, and sure, they love to lie around and watch us, but they also like to be part of it and acknowledged. Think of a situation, for instance, when you're approaching your dog. Let's just say you're walking from A to B, and you are approaching, your dog is in front of you and you're approaching them. Not specifically approaching them directly, but you may want to go past them, but they're kind of there, you walking towards them. That could be one situation. Another situation could be a greeting situation. So when you come home and your dog greets you, okay, that's another situation. A different greeting situation could be when they greet you in the mornings. So your very first contact in the mornings, that greeting that takes place. What about when you're grooming your dog, or when you're brushing them out, looking for ticks, cleaning their ears, doing any kind of husbandry activity, clipping their nails, all those kind of things? What about feeding time, when you're actually feeding your dog? That could be another situation. Or when you're putting on their equipment, so when you're putting on their collar and their harness, getting ready to go for their walk. What about on your walk or during your walks? What about chilling and hanging out? This is another situation when you're just being with your dog. You're just chilling and hanging out with them. Or when you're training them, you're doing a specific skill. Perhaps you're training for a dog sport, or you're training a new little trick, or I don't know, you're training some kind of skill, leash handling skills that you want to train. That's another situation. And then playing with your dog, when you're actually playing with your dog. So these are, I've mentioned, I don't know, 8 situations there. Choose one for this exercise, just one of those exercises, and I'm going to take you through just a couple of questions that you can really think about how that situation plays out. So I want you to recall that situation to mind now, one of them. And if you can, if you're not driving or anything, close your eyes and just play it out. Play that mind movie out of how that situation normally occurs. And I'm talking about not a specific one where you are like really intensely connected with your dog, which I hope they all are, but possibly not. I'm talking about everyday interactions. What do they look like? What does the average interaction in that situation look like? Um, and when you let that sort of movie unfold in your mind or play out in your mind, ask yourself, was this what I expected when I first got my dog, when I first wanted to have a relationship with a dog or this particular dog? Was this what I expected it to look like? Was it something that I had in mind? Because I think we do have a picture of what we want these interactions to look like when we get our dogs, but it's part of our dream. But perhaps it's a little bit more subconscious. I want you to kind of bring that up and think of, when I think of having a dog in my life, or when I thought of brought it, and I thought of all these situations where I'd be playing with them and cuddling with them and going for walks with them and doing things with them. What did that connection look like when you were actually doing that? Was it just you and your dog doing two things at once in the same space, or were you actually connected at that time? So it's quite an interesting thought to think about how you perceive that kind of interaction with them. And is it possibly, when you're looking at that, is that what happens in daily, in your daily interactions with them? Are you fully present with them? Are you really connecting from a heart-to-heart level or a physical level with them? And are you opening up a conversation with them? Are you opening up a dialogue and actually having a back and forth with them? Or are you just perhaps just watching your dog? Is your mind full of things and you're doing something completely different while you are grooming your dog or greeting your dog or, you know, feeding your dog? That's one of my worst ones, is when I'm feeding my dogs. I often go to the kitchen and my mind is full of whatever tasks I have to do that day or have still to do or have done. And I'm busy preparing their food, and there they are, graciously waiting, patiently looking up at me. And I've hardly connected with them. And then, it's easy to just put the bowls down, say, there we go, and walk off. All right. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that you have to stay there and eat there with them, but certainly give it some thought and attention. I mean, I know for me, food times are really my feeding times, my meal times are exciting times, particularly at the end of the day. We all sit together at the table as a family, we commune, we talk about our days, we bring things up, and it's a family time. It's a time of connection and communication, not just eating. And yes, our dogs want to gobble down their dinner and they don't want us to sit there and talk to them. But certainly acknowledging them during the process, perhaps, or putting some love into that bowl while you're preparing it and talking to them and acknowledging them and telling them about what you're putting in the bowl and thinking about, is this one of their favorite meals, or is this one that you think is not so favorite, or whatever it is. Just to have some presence during that moment, some connection with them, and use that opportunity to have that heartfelt connection that I think we really, really wanted to experience, and still do want to experience in everyday life with our dogs. So, any comments about that? I would love to hear. What situation did you have in mind? Does it play out the way that you thought it would always be like that? And is there ways that you can remind yourself that perhaps to make that connection a bit deeper, a bit more meaningful? Because we often think of connection like, oh, go and join Sue's 10-day connection challenge and you're going to get, more connected to your dog. We have to learn how to connect. But really, it's about being in the moment and experimenting, right? It's about opening that dialogue, having that communication with your dog. Saying something and pausing and watching their reaction, about making a specific gesture and watching their reaction to that, opening that conversation to really allow them to feel that they're heard and that they are, that they're valuable members of our family. It doesn't, a heart connection doesn't have to look like, oh, quiet meditation with this beautiful golden thread between us. It can look like that, but it doesn't have to look like that. In everyday interactions, it's just that brief second of being fully mindful with that other being, I think. For me, it's just that, it's that gentle touch, it's that little, wink of the eye. It's that love you. It's that, gentle touch. Whatever it is, it's just a brief moment of true connection to say, I hear you, I see you, I value you. Thank you for being in my life. And for me, I'm guilty of all my relationships, both human and dogs, with this, because I often get so caught up in my busy mind. And I think dogs can teach us this very, very special lesson of staying connected in the moment and appreciating them for who they are. Because we often reminded that when our dogs, are no longer with us because they're with us for such a short time, we realize all the missed opportunities that we had to really spend special connection time with them. And so using everyday situations instead of, thinking at 3 o'clock, I'm going to go on this walk and then that's when I'm going to connect with my dog. It can be the briefest of moments throughout the day in small little interactions. And then, things like if you chose something like going on a walk or playing with your dog, again, be fully present and open a dialogue. Let there be a communication that's flowing back and forth between the two of you, not just you doing something with your dog or your dog just doing something and you're watching. Make it interactive, make it a communication, make it a conversation with your dogs, because they can show us that they can have a dialogue with us if we listen and we watch their facial expressions, we watch their body movements, we watch, what, do they come in close, do they move away, do they look away, do they get silly, what do they do, open that conversation with them. I think we're missing opportunities to really converse with our dogs. It's just, for me, it was just about being aware of what we do with our dogs in daily activities and knowing that connection doesn't have to be a big ordeal. It can be just that brief, heartfelt moment that we have with our dogs, and there could be plenty in our daily activities. And I certainly think we have enough routine interactions with them that we can turn around and we can use those as really meaningful connections with our dogs to really build that relationship, build communication, build that trust between the two of us, and hopefully improve our overall relationships with our dogs, our partnerships, so that it becomes more meaningful. So thanks, lovely ladies. Thanks for joining me, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.